Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I want to just make this informational video today, just talking about a style of programming that I feel like a lot of people do not actually understand what it is, how to properly use it in their programs, what the context is, how it could be properly used, etc. And that's going to be something called DUP, or Daily Undulating Periodization, something that has gained a lot more popularity due to more people in the fitness space promoting it who have a larger profile. However, and the unfortunate thing is that it's not exactly like how they're saying that it is on their programs. It's a misapplication of it, and so I wanted to make some clarifications on what DUP actually is, what it looks like, and how to properly apply it if you guys do choose. I have my degree in exercise science, so I know a lot about this stuff, and I study this a lot, and I've worked with people that are great powerlifting coaches, so I know a thing or two. So first off, I just wanted to say DUP is something that is mainly for intermediate to advanced lifters. With DUP, you basically are forced into using it or decide to use it because you cannot overload it in the same way that you could as you could when you were a beginner. The reason why is because you are stronger, you can accumulate, each session is harder than it was when you were a beginner, because by the principle of overload and the things like adaptive resistance, it becomes harder to overload and see adaptations that we want from training. So when you're a beginner, I recommend stick to linear periodization. So just if you're a beginner, linear periodization. However, if you're approaching more of that intermediate stage of training, and a really great way to know, okay, how am I beginner, how am I an intermediate? Beginner, you can easily add a weight every single session. You're still adding like large amounts onto your lifts every single month when you come back. It's like 20 pounds increase on like squat and deadlift, and 10 pounds on like bench press, like these large increases, and you can do that very consistently, and you see changes very fast still. When you're becoming more of an intermediate, you notice, it's kind of getting hard to even add 5 pounds to my bench per month. 10 pounds to my squat is huge. Like, things just become harder. So that's probably really a decent, and like your strength is higher. I don't like strength standards because strength standards are arbitrary and meaningless, but that's basically how I would describe intermediate versus beginner. But back to DUP. If you're an intermediate or advanced lifter and you want to incorporate this, there are a lot of the main reason why DUP is so effective. So DUP, let's define it now. Basically, it's going to be alterations in intensity, total volume that you do in each session with each lift, and the reason why we do that mainly is to avoid having too much fatigue accumulated systemically, so that we can't and the reason why fatigue is an issue is because it affects our ability to overload and actually adapt. Heavy workouts affect everything, okay? So if you had a really heavy deadlift day, you're not going to be able to you're going to get really fatigued from that. Like, training doesn't happen in a vacuum. The fatigue that you get from bench pressing or deadlift is felt systemically because your central nervous system acts systemically. So that's one of the other perks. So by varying intensity and the amount of volume that we allocate to each lift in each muscle group, can help us manage that fatigue, so then we can have more predictability and direction with our training. What I mean by that is you'll be able to know, on this day I'm probably going to be stronger, and on the other day I'm probably going to be a little bit weaker. So you know how to expect, like, how your training is going to go. You know how to load the barbell. You know how to properly implement fatigue management, overload, all these scientific principles of strength training and getting more jacked that so many people just don't understand. Like, a lot of people get frustrated and don't understand, like, why after a really heavy deadlift workout or I set a PR, why can't I do that next week? Well, you might have that fatigue. And so this is where DUP comes into so much, handiness, quote unquote, just because you can absolutely manage that fatigue and still achieve overload. Because your lighter session over the mesocycle, as long as programmed correctly, should still be getting progressively harder. Well, that's just what has to happen for overload to occur. Our bodies aren't just going to adapt for no reason, especially as you get more intermediate and advanced into training. Another thing is, instead of just taking like a day off and like only train like a muscle, like a lift, like once a week, you can still maintain that technical proficiency on the lift. So what I mean, like, and so if, let's say, if you're only to deadlift once a week, as opposed to, like, you might lose some of that technical prowess or not be as good at the movement, because moving heavy weight is a skill. It's all about biomechanical efficiency, how well you can move your body with heavy loads in the most efficient manner. That's basically what it is. And if you lose some of that technical proficiency with your lift, you're not going to be able to move as much weight as efficiently. So the main model of DUP that I will outline is, I would define it as a high-low or like an intermediate / alternating model. So what that would look like is, let's say you have a really heavy squat workout in, like, early on in the week, and let's say it's, you have 6 sets of squats at RPE 9, 6 sets of 5 at RPE 9. Okay, that's going to be very, very fatiguing. Now let's say you want to also still have squats later on in the week, so that you can maintain that technical proficiency and still achieve some overload. Later on in the week, your squat workout could look something like a 2x5 at RPE 6. Okay, so that's still going, but then as we get increased along our mesocycles, like our mesocycle length, and we accumulate that volume until we deload and then reduce all that fatigue, volume intensity will still increase on both the heavy days and the light days. So let's say you start off with a 5x5 at RPE 8 on squat week 1, and that's your first one, and then later on in the week you have a 2x5 at RPE 6. Well, maybe by the end, in your overreaching week, to achieve super compensation before you deload, maybe you're going to be doing, on your hardest day, a 7x5 at RPE 10, and on your lighter day you're going to be doing a 4x5 at RPE 7. So it still gets harder. You're still adding volume, but when you create that fatigue and you have that more stimulative session, you are taking care of it and you are managing it, and that's fatigue management, and the principle of SRA, overload, and fatigue management at its finest. So I'll pop something up on the screen really, really fast right here of like exactly like what it will look like across like a period of, let's say a 4-to-1 paradigm of 4 weeks of accumulation, 1 week deload, how to properly apply DUP in your training. I want to reiterate again, DUP is not a beginner technique. You don't need to alternate your intensity, because you can still progress totally fine without much systemic fatigue, because you're not as strong. And as if you're in intermediate, maybe consider this, but I want to make this video really fast just because the question I get, and a lot of people just don't understand it. There's not very much really good information on what it actually is. But yeah, if you guys are interested in coaching programs, yada yada yada, all my stuff down below. Like, subscribe, and I'm outie.